All right. I don't know if it's capturing locally or not, so we'll just see how it goes. All right.
Okay.
I'm going to just start the show and we'll start talking.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of JavaScript Jabber. This week, I'm your panel, Charles Max Wood, and we've got a special guest this week. We have Kelvin. I don't even have it in front of me anymore. Where'd it go? Omereshone. I hope I got close.
Close enough.
So, do you want to introduce yourself? Let people know who you are and why you're famous and all that good stuff.
Famous, not yet. Thank you, Charles. Hey everyone, my name is Calvin. I am a full stack JavaScript developer. I'm also the lead maintainer for an MVC framework for Node.js called Sales. I do a couple
Mm,
of teaching and open source work, built the boring stack, and some other things. So yeah, I love JavaScript. I like to build everything in JavaScript. So I guess that's why I'm here.
awesome. We should have you back definitely to talk about sales. But
Mhm.
we brought you to talk about Inertia JS 2 or 2.0.
Mhm.
So do you want to just give us kind of a quick overview of what Inertia JS is for those that aren't familiar with it or haven't used it?
Yeah, for sure. So it's at the basic level, it's a paradigm, sort of like a concept of building full stack applications, single page application
Mm-hmm.
that don't necessarily need you to do the separate APIs like backend, and then your UI can be in React, Vue, or Svelte. So it gives you this ability to have both your backend and your frontend in one code base and just take out that layer of having to do fetch call because your backend can return your UI's component as pages and also send out the props that they need when it sends down the page. So it came out from the Laravel world. It's what Laravel Cloud is being built on now, which is the new Raven Cloud things. I don't know if you've
Mm-hmm.
done that. So a bunch of people use it. Phantom Analytics use it. I also use it for salescast.com and Hackfish. So it just simplify if you like MVC stuff and you want to keep your SPA, but you don't want to maintain two different projects and have like a backend separate and a front end separate. And so it's an alternative to things like Next.js if you like traditional server-side applications, but you still want an SPA.
Gotcha.
Mm.
So I'm curious because I saw the information about Inertia JS 2.0.
Mm-hmm.
I'll admit I've kind of looked at it. I haven't done a whole lot with it.
Yeah.
What's new in 2.0? What and why did we need a 2.0?
Yeah, it's a couple of things new. First of all, the first version, 1.0, was kind of mimicking synchronous style of like so if you make a like a page request and you want to make another one, it's going to cancel like the old one. So it wasn't asynchronous at all. It was really synchronous, just like the way the pages work in a browser, right? Like anytime you make a new request get, it's going to cancel out the old one. So, but
Mm-hmm.
with 2.0, from the ground up, is built to be asynchronous, which opened the door to like more goodies to come into the tech, meaning that we could do things like partial reload and make that to be asynchronous. We could do things like deferred props and a bunch of other things like prefetching, polling, for example. So 2.0, the biggest change is it's asynchronous now. So that means all requests are asynchronous, just like what you get in something like Next.js or any other thing.
Mm-hmm.
But now you have more um, things that you could use it for. Because so let's use my app, for example, that I'm doing Hackfish, which is an invoice app. It has an editor that lets you edit your invoice like and give you this notion
Mm-hmm.
like feel to edit, right? So in 1.0 inertia, if I make a change and I want to partially submit those changes like saving drafts, right? It's going to make a request, like a synchronous request. So if I make a new change, it will cancel out the old change I was supposed to go to the server and make that update. But
Hmm.
with 2.0 now, is everything's going to be async, so it could do that partial updates asynchronously.
So when you're saying a partial update, you're talking about where
Mhm.
you only update part of the page?
Yes. So yes, exactly. So when you so if you have, let's say you have on a page, you have users and then you have, let's say, companies. Let's just use that.
Hmm.
Right. So if I want to update or like want to change the UI or filter by users, but I don't need to touch the companies, right? I could say, when I make this updates, I want you to send back only the user. I don't send back the users and the companies. So that is partial updates, right? In Inertia. So before it was all going to be synchronous. So anything that so if you make if you type a new thing and I was already firing an old synchronous request, it's going to cancel out the old one to send a new one. But now it's all
Hmm.
async, so they could all have multiple requests. It's a big deal because it changes how it works. And I could talk about things like the deferred props and every other thing that this new system brings to 2.0.
Right. I'm just trying to get my head
Mhm.
around when you
Yeah.
so when you're saying partial updates, you're talking about data.
Mhm.
You're not talking about UI then.
Yeah, so because the page will come with the data. So
Uh huh.
if you partially update the data, of course, it's going to like change what page you're going to see. Like,
Right.
or yeah, like what is on the UI. Yeah, because every page comes with the data as prop.
Okay. I guess the other
Mhm,
question I have then is, let's say that you and I are both looking at the same data on different machines.
mhm.
Does it then give you a way to push those updates, like from my machine to your machine, or
No, that's more real time. I don't think
yeah?
so. It's mostly
Okay.
because like it's just going to be for just my copy of it all. Yeah,
Right. Okay.
yeah. That's fine.
But it does do a call to the back end and tells the back end, hey, there's new data here.
Yeah, so that's when you make like a classic like create an update. Is going to change. And of
Hmm.
course, if you're looking at a page that was changed, the next time you visit the page, of course you're going
Hmm.
to see the new data, even
Right.
if you're not like, so it's just classic CRUD. Yeah.
I gotcha. So
Mhm.
does this change the way you build things with inertia?
Oh yes, it does. It does. On it just gives you more goodies because the way inertia work, it's adapter based. So for both the back end and the
Uh-huh.
front end, so they are adapters for Laravel, for Rails, Phoenix.
Uh-huh.
I also built the one for sales, which is what the boy stack uses. So these changes need you and for your so now you have to conform to the new things that is in the core of inertia. So you add some new method there, like change how some certain backend work. But for the view and other front-end framework adapters, you don't have to touch anything. So it's just me, I myself as a maintainer that have to change all that stuff. But with the 2.0, you could do things so now that is all asynchronous, you could do things like infinite scrolling really easily. In
Hmm.
fact, the components that are baked into 2.2 that lets you do stuff. So like the when visible component. So if you're scrolling and you want to load new data, so it's just gonna make sure that you don't just load every data once the page mounts, for example. So you could
Hmm.
do things like when scrolling, just the classic infinite scroll thing. And because it comes in the core of inertia, it's pretty easy to do that. So you could do things like that and deferred prop. So let's say you have like an admin dashboard and you show the stats at the top.
Hmm.
So instead of you showing the stats at the top and also fetching the maybe recent users that's will only be seen when the user scroll, you could defer like those prop to like, okay, send only the stats and then incrementally send down everything else.
So this would be used, like you said, for like an admin dashboard or something
Yeah.
else where
Yeah.
essentially you don't want it to do all of the work and take forever to load the page,
Mm-hmm.
and so you can
Yeah.
say, hey, look, I've got this page with this structure, and then the deferred props are essentially the data, and so it can go back and it can say, okay, the
Yeah.
page is loaded and now I'm ready to populate this section of the page, so I've
Mm-hmm.
deferred getting those props and filling in the blanks essentially.
Exactly, exactly. So it's now more, I think these features really make it like a good contender for things like Next.js, for example, right? Like,
Hmm.
because I've seen folks like in 1.0, I've seen folks prefer the boring stack because of how simple it is and how, because the cool thing about this whole thing that it brings for you is that you get the whole trust of an MVC framework to handle your backend, your authorization, your ORM, and
Hmm.
then the bridge, which is Inertia. So we just got a better bridge. The back end they keep getting better, the front end keep getting better. Then the bridge now gives you this amazing experience in DX, prefetching, deferred props,
Hmm.
and infinite scroll polling as well. Like it's easy to like pull for new data if you want to. So if you don't want to do WebSocket stuff and you want to pull, like
Hmm.
it is possible. It's come baked in, so you could do things like throttling or don't pull when that tab is inactive and all that stuff. It comes baked into the framework, the tech right now. So it's really, really good. It's just gonna make it easier to build really nice experiences with the tech.
That makes sense. Is it sending the data
Mhm.
back as fully formed HTML, or is it just JSON and you're relying on whatever you're doing on the front end to populate the data, or how does that work?
Yeah, so it's leverage the fact that you could swap out components in real time for every um like Vue, Svelte, and the rest, right?
Hmm.
So what happens is that today is like you have like an app.js that you would do a like a create initial app for Vue, Svelte, or React, and then
Hmm.
you'll be like, okay, look for the pages in maybe um JS latch pages, right? So you give it the page name and you would know that okay. So once the backend say look for a page that is user, for example, it will use that to find the user.jxs and then swap the page
Okay.
and also send the props into that page. So it has a DSL that will be like the name of the page, the props, the URL, and every other data that you would need. So it swap it as you click, it's going
Hmm.
to intercept those click, then it will make an SHR call to get the page. So it's all SPL like.
Right. So
Mm.
most of the work I do is server rendered, and so I'm pretty
Mm,
accustomed to making the call to the back end and getting
exactly.
HTML back and saying drop this in where I tell you to.
Hmm.
But what you're saying is,
Yeah.
since you're using a front end library like React or Vue or
Hmm.
Svelte or something, it already knows, hey, I've got a component and this component has these behaviors and this data behind it. And so
Yeah.
effectively what you do is when you click it, it says, okay, take this component, you're going to put it here, or maybe it's a collection of components or something like that. And you're going to go get
Hmm.
the data, and the data is the props, and
Yeah.
you're going to load those, and you're basically going to hydrate your
Mm,
components with the data so that then it knows, okay, now I've got fully formed functional things that I
yeah.
can put onto my page.
Yeah, exactly. So the cool thing is, so if you're doing something like a classic SPA, like when you want to see um let's say courses, for example, right? If you visit the page would load, right? But now you have to
Hmm.
make another call with the spinner, right? To see, like,
Right.
to get the data. But in this way, everything is server side centric. So the page will always load with the data. So there's no need for like a spinner. So it comes
Right.
with the data. Yeah, but it's an SPA. So there's no need for the spinner. There's no need to have states in like what's it, Redux or all those other stuff, because your state is in the database. So everything always come
Mhm.
and all like that. So yeah.
That's
Mhm.
cool. So let's say, because I can kind of see two scenarios here. So one
Yeah.
scenario is, hey, I've got my React app or my Next.js app or Vue or
Mhm.
whatever, right? And I've been using Inertia JS 1.0 for a while. This sounds great. Let's
Mhm.
upgrade it. What do I have to do to upgrade it?
So it depends on what you're using already. So if you're using, so if for the most part, it's very popular in the Laravel ecosystem. So all you have to do
Uh-huh.
is update both the backend adapter, which will be
Hmm.
Inertia dash Laravel, and then the front end, whether it's Vue or React. I think that's all you need to do. It doesn't have a lot of breaking changes for like a major like this. It doesn't have a lot, except you're using a couple of things that you do. So, but as soon as you do those change, your app is async now. So everything is
Hmm.
async by default. So it will just work. But you could now tap into using things like the prefetching, which is really cool. So this one, like I think Next.js already have it, and I think like if you've been building on the web for like a while, like you know like how to prefetch stuff. But this now come
Right.
with the stuff, so you could be like, okay, if you hover on something, prefetch that page, or if it
Hmm.
mounts, load these other pages optimistically that I think that you're going to visit. So it now comes, so it's more giving you more add-ons, so you don't really have to change much of your apps. So for me, I have to do a lot because I've not updated my own adapter yet. But after that updates, users just have it for free because it would just work. They just have to use like the new things, the one visible components, polling, if you have to pull for data and all the stuff. Yeah.
Right. So
Mhm.
what you're saying is if I update Inertia on the front end, right? I just say, okay, now I'm using Inertia 2.
Mhm.
That's all I have to do on the front end, and on the back end, I update my adapter, and then
Yeah.
everything that I was doing with Inertia still works, right?
Yeah.
Some of it might
But it's
become
now async.
asynchronous or things like
Mhm.
that. It just opens
Yeah.
the door so I can use some of these other features.
Yeah. And it's like the best um like major update ever with no breaking changes
Yeah,
at all, except like just a few things here. And they're like this is the dream. It's just so easy to update. Yeah.
right. Yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, I've worked on some systems, and yeah, you get that major version update, and it's like,
Yeah,
okay,
it's they're
I've
the
got
worst.
all this stuff that depends on all of these features out of last version,
Hmm.
right? And
Yeah.
so now when I do the upgrade, I either have to find some way of like running both versions or
Hmm.
jumping through a bunch of
Yeah.
hoops. And so this is pretty refreshing, right?
Yes, it is. Like it's a joy. It's a joy. Like everything this just work, and you just have to know that you're not using, like you probably wouldn't notice the changes much because
Uh-huh.
it just work and it just synchronizes things. So it's more like an architecture change than actual like things you would take notice of. Yeah.
Right. So I want to kind of back into some of these other features. We've talked a bit about async. Um,
Mm-hmm.
is there any concern about, because you can have multiple requests in now? Is there any concern about those
Hmm.
coming in the wrong order or anything like that, where maybe you get a race condition or something like that, where you could get unexpected results, or does Inertia handle all that for you?
Yeah, I think so. Like it's why you have to update the adapters. So those
Uh huh.
are already like um taking the, so it's more like you most likely won't have to run into any of those issues, but the adapters have also made sure that all the race condition, which I don't think is even
Hmm.
possible because it's all async, right? So if I'm loading this
Right.
part of the page and this other part is, so it doesn't really matter, but I'm pretty sure it's all taken care of. That's why we have to update those adapters. Yes.
Okay.
So work with the correct versions. Mhm.
And then you mentioned the polling.
Mhm.
So do I just tell it how frequently to check, or how long I want it to poll for, or
Yeah. So it comes with the front end
Mhm.
comes with so for view we have the composable. For um React, there's also the hook, the use poll hook. So you could just
Mhm.
drop it in there and be like use poll, then poll every 20 second, and you could put like some callbacks like on start, on finished, like to just, and you could
Okay.
also stop it if you want to. So like it's not like forever. So, and you could throttle it, like
Mhm.
so that yeah, so that you don't just, so if I'm not on the page, there's no need for you to fetch data, right? So you could also throttle it for that. Yeah.
Right.
Hmm.
So, and then you mentioned I'm looking at this article. I guess I could post it to the
Hmm.
comments, but they mentioned the when visible, and that was where you were talking about things like infinite scrolling, right?
Yeah.
So this
Yeah,
comes
that's
onto the
really
page,
fun.
now do the work. But I could also see
Mhm.
this as kind of a performance hack where, I have a dashboard, but some of the graphs or something are
Mm.
below the fold. And so it's like, okay,
Yeah.
you scrolled up far enough to where you might want to see this. And so now I'm going to load that in. But before I didn't do that work because I didn't even know if you're going to look at
Hmm.
it.
Exactly. So yeah, it's more good for UX and like all your it's just gonna be good for web vitals. They're gonna love you for
Uh
it.
huh.
So and of course your users are gonna love it too, because not every part of the page it gets seen or have equal attention. So you could
Right.
just be like, when visible, do stuff. If not
Hmm.
visible, then that work is never done and that page was loaded and the user gets what they wanted to do done really quickly. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you covered everything that I was able to find on
Mm-hmm.
this. So I guess the next questions are, kind of more in general with just building web applications and best practices. So one of the things that I like to do with a lot of my applications is make sure that it's fully tested. And
Mm-hmm.
so, how do I go about making sure that I have good tests on these kinds of requests?
Yeah, for sure. So the cool thing about Inertia is it's based on really stable text.
Uh huh.
So for every of these platforms, so for Laravel, for Rails, there are ways you already test your app. So the same test
Right.
apply here. So yeah, so you could test, okay, is the page um sending back the data you need and every other thing. It's just like making a classic endpoint test, right?
Okay.
Like to see if you're
Yep.
getting the JSON back, because it sends down JSON down the wire. So you could do that. And also you could test your components the same way you could test with anything like chests or whatever you use for testing. Now
Okay.
you could also do E2E tests. I like E2E tests, and these days they are faster. So you could test like the entire flow of everything from like
Hmm.
the click, from everything. So it doesn't change much for like from how you build software. It just makes it a little bit more simple and make it more tight and cohesive. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Um, that's another thing that I was going to ask about is it
Okay.
sounds like you mentioned that, and you mentioned it too, right? That it makes your code more concise, maybe a little easier to read, a
Mhm.
little easier to understand.
Yeah.
If you've been writing code for long enough, you realize that you're writing code for other programmers, right? So that they can maintain it. You're not writing it necessarily for the computer,
Mhm.
right? The computer
Mhm.
gets whatever it gets from whatever JavaScript virtual machine or whatever else you're running. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, in what ways have you found this cleans up your code?
A lot of ways. So I did this series of talk, which is like shipless JavaScript,
Hmm.
because I feel like the best way to not have bugs is to write less code.
Yeah.
So like in a classic style of SPA and API, you are maintaining two code base, right? Especially when you're doing JavaScript everywhere. So what's the point of doing JavaScript everywhere where you gotta have to still maintain two different code bases? And these
Hmm.
apps, they don't really talk to each other, but it's still all JavaScript. Why? So when you take out, first of all, you take out that because the routing is done in the backend. You have
Hmm.
one routing system, like one route file. So classically, you have both your API routes, your API
Hmm.
endpoints, and then your SPA routes, which would be like React router
Hmm.
or
Yep.
or just anyhow you route, right? And then you got to do state management, which is state management code. I still like. I was so grateful for um not having to write them anymore for like 2 3 years now, because it's just a nightmare. Like the different patterns and
Yeah.
like you just more code, more bugs, right? So that
Right.
just make it simple because you know your page come with the data and you don't always have to fetch all the data. You could be like, send me this page again. If I click now, give me just this portion of the
Right.
data. So you still have this fine grained control and you get it for free. And then don't get me started with the flash of unauthenticated content that happens when you have these two separate apps, because like now the page makes, so if I click on a page to view and I'm logging, I get to see the
Hmm.
flash of sign in, sign up, then I see my avatar. Why? Because of course it's going to take a while to talk to the backend. But now the backend is sending the entire state. So we know you're logging. So you never see that flash. All right. So
Hmm.
there's lots of benefit for both the UX and the DX. And you get to understand your app flow, because most times, especially when you're a small team, I don't really see the need, like the need to have two separate apps if you're a small team, and even if you're a big team, because the backend guys will just do some JSON and throw it over the wire. Then the front end guys just have to marshal it. But now
Hmm.
everybody's working on the same code base. We understand how the application work from, so, and when devs know this, like from top to like everything they know about the app is holistic, they get to build more apps that makes more sense, because I've seen apps that are built really weird because the teams, they don't talk to each other because someone
Right.
is just sending down JSON. I don't care whether you need those JSON at all. But in this setup, you could be like, okay, I just need the email of the user. And I myself, as a front-end person, can go put, okay, just select the email. That's all I need
Hmm.
for this page. And I can get it instead of like the API person to send down all the things of the user, then you just get to speak the email. And even if you're just picking that and showing to the user, you're still sending that down the wire. And so that's the extra cost. But this is no longer the issue because you could just find go and be like, these are the data I need. So it's good for data and it's good for like DX and everything else. So I
Hmm.
love it.
Yeah, it
Mhm.
sounds a little bit like when you're talking about just getting the data you need, it sounds like the way that a lot of people talk about GraphQL. So,
Yeah, sounds
it,
like that.
but it's not like that.
No, but it's not like that at all. It's
Okay.
not. It's backend driven
Okay.
SPA. Yeah, unlike GraphQL, where you got to do like, okay, like there's this set, then the further guy cannot make the all the queries, but you make everything in the backend and then send out what you need to the user. It's in the
Okay.
backend. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of how that would work. So,
I could.
so with
I don't know. I
GraphQL,
could show you
essentially you
code if it's
construct a
possible.
query and you say, "Give me this data
Mhm.
back." And with Inertia,
Yeah.
it sounds like more you're saying, "I need this UI," and then your backend is intelligent enough to say, "This UI only needs this data," and so that's why it sends it up.
Mm, kind of, but
Kind of.
you're still
Okay.
thinking separately, right?
Uh
But
huh.
you own the entire app. It's full stack now. So
Okay.
you know what that page need, and you could make the query to get just the data you need for that
Uh
page
huh.
and send it down yourself. So
Okay.
it's one app. It's one app. All right. Yeah. I could.
Hmm.
I don't know if we could share. I could definitely show you a couple of code if you want to see.
Yeah,
That'll be
we
fun.
tend to not do that on this show just
Mm,
because
okay.
a lot of people listen audio only.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Yeah, cool.
but yeah,
Yeah.
I think I'm kind of getting the idea, and maybe I just need to go play with it some
Mhm.
more.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So one other question, yeah, I mean, you keep mentioning that other backends use it too, so it's not just Node.js or JavaScript backends. People who
Yeah,
listen to the show know that I primarily work with Ruby on Rails.
yeah,
Steve
we have
Edwards,
that.
who's also a host on the show, primarily does Vue and Laravel, and
Mm,
so yeah, so it sounds like yeah, there's kind of a cohesive approach to this where yeah, you're blurring the line a bit more between your front end and your back end.
yeah, yes, it's exactly like that. It just makes it easy to build SPAs, but you don't have to
Mhm.
do like an API layer. It's all just one
Right.
app, and you get to leverage your backend things, your auth, your
Mhm.
data access. It's all done in the backend. Yeah.
So in that case, and this also reminds me a little bit of GraphQL in the sense
Mm,
that on the front end, right, you basically just build the queries, and then on the back end you have what are they called? They have the classes essentially that go and fetch the data and deliver it
mm,
to whatever orchestrates your GraphQL query.
yeah.
Um, so it sounds like this is a little bit more involved where maybe I'm writing code on my back end that's specifically designed to work with inertia, right? So I put the
Mm-hmm.
adapter in, and then I'm working in kind of an inertia way for my view layer
Mm-hmm.
as far as the back end goes. Is
Yeah.
is that
And
accurate at all, or
yeah, it is. So it's not restricting you. So you could send down inertial pages. You could send out
uh
classic server-side pages in the same
right?
app. You could also do fetch calls from your front end in the same app.
Mhm.
So there's no restriction. It's like if you call it, it sends down like the pages. If not, you could do your EJS like
Mhm.
for Node or your ERB for Rails, and it will
Right.
still work. Yeah.
Right. That makes sense. So yeah, so where inertia is going to call it, I'm working in the inertia world. But yeah, obviously
Yeah.
it wouldn't keep me from just doing things the other way. I was
Yeah.
also going to ask about how it compares to something like HTMX, but it sounds like you've kind of answered that because HTMX it just sends back HTML. Um,
Yeah, yeah. This
whereas
send
yeah,
person.
yeah, this is
Mhm.
designed specifically to work with inertia, and so
Yeah.
it feels like one cohesive application.
Yes, it does. It does. It really does. And you could visit a couple of apps that work like that and
Uh-huh.
just like have a feel at how it works. So one is laracast.com. They use Inertia.
Oh,
If you
okay.
could say it, yeah. Laracast.com, use Phantom, their dashboard also uses Inertia. Use Phantom. That should be their website. Yeah. Also use Inertia. So if you just click around, you could see how it behaves like an SPA. But
Uh-huh.
so if you check what's being sent back, it's more like name, which should be like the component name, then props, all in JSON form, and then it knows how to render those. Yeah.
Oh, very cool.
Mm.
Yeah, I'll have to check those out as well. So,
Yeah.
I guess the other question, and this is always the biggie when I talk to people about using some of their library, is how does it affect performance?
And like app
Yeah,
performance.
yeah. You mentioned
Mm,
Core Web Vitals, for example, but
yeah.
just in
Yeah.
general.
I don't think it does because you won't even so in terms of like I said, it's an alternative to using things like Noxt, Next, ZKit.
Uh huh.
It there's no there's no downside on that. In fact, I think you even get more bang for your buck, like if you use it, because unlike the other stuff that I'm more concerned with building like an SPA, and then you get to talk to the API, and then those artificial wait time with the spinners and all. With this, you don't get all that. So it's more direct and you get
Hmm.
because what makes app really slow most time is the data access.
Right.
So this like since you have fine grain um control on what you need, I think it's like an up, like a one up for it in terms of like the other alternatives out there. So there's not really much hit on performance at all. Like I've been using it for 2+ years now, and I used Nox before. It's more better for my DX and also more better for my UX because everything is really snappy, and all I have to do is like, of course, I'm not sending down every row in my database to the user.
Hmm.
So that's the only way. So if you build MVC app, you already know how to work, like make good queries already. So it's not like it's just not like it's a non-issue on that one. So it's all pretty snappy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, so if somebody wanted to get started with Inertia, how would they do that?
Yeah, so if you do full stack JavaScript, I think best way you could just do npx create sales, which will like scaffold like a full stack app with you with the sales on the
Uh-huh.
back end, and then you could pick Vue, React, or Svelte. If you do any other languages on the back end, you have to use their adapter and their guide, which the
Right.
docs also have a lot on. So Laravel, Rails, and the rest, it also like have docs on that on how to set it up. Yeah.
Right. What if I'm doing Node.js on the back end, but I'm not using Sales? So maybe I have it built on something
Yeah, I
else.
think yeah, for sure. There's so Adonis also have an adapter too.
Hmm.
So most of this framework they have adapters, so you could just
Okay.
use the so but if you use it, even Express, I think Express also has an adapter too as well. So you could
Okay.
it's all it's all adapter based, and you could really build one really quickly if you want to. If you really need the benefit, you could.
Very cool.
Mm, mm.
Is there anything else that folks ought to know about Inertia or Inertia 2 if they're already using Inertia?
Yeah, so I think it speaks to how good the tech is when major apps like the one I mentioned, like an analytics platform like Use Phantom uses
Hmm.
Inertia, and also the new um Laravel Cloud is built with Inertia and React. So I think you could give it a try because if you don't like the status quo of things for using things like Next, and you just like and you prefer MVC and you want like a robust, stable backend thing for your stuff, because I've
Hmm.
seen people they build Laravel API and then they build a Next.js SPA or something.
Yeah.
But all because of the whole hassle of okay, they don't really like they want something stable for the backend, but
Hmm.
it's okay to just bridge it, right? And just have everything one and just work with it. So you could do because what you really want in X most times I find is React. Yeah, like that's what you really want, like
Hmm.
the whole um GXS and stuff. So if you want that, but you want a robust backend, you could just check out building apps the with Inertia. It's really simple to get started. Mhm.
That's cool. So,
Yes.
tell us a little bit about you. I'm kind of curious. So, you said you have a Nigerian last name. Do you live in Nigeria, or are you from somewhere else? Or
Yes, I do. I live in Nigeria. I've been here all my life,
uh-huh.
physically. Yeah.
That's super cool. I've never been there,
Mhm.
but yeah,
Oh, you should. You
yeah.
should. You should try and come over. It's really like a cool place to to vacation at or just like have a tour. Yeah.
Hmm.
So we'll be doing the sales conf this year, June. So we're gonna have like a couple of people come out the like from other places in Africa and elsewhere, like to just come
Hmm.
and have like a web dev conference. So it'll be fun.
Cool. And you're doing that in Nigeria?
Mm. Yeah, Nigeria.
Oh, very cool. Oh, I'd love to figure out how to get out there. Anyway, so what's
Yeah.
the dev community like out there?
Yeah, it's pretty vibrant. Like we have an open source community here. Like a lot of people are big on open source. There are a lot of
Hmm.
developers. Like right? And they know, like, so it's been really, really good for years now. So they have a lot of dev roles too here. So I don't know if you know Chakra UI.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know it? Yeah.
Yeah,
So like that's made by a Nigerian as well. And yeah, and a couple of other open source tech that I know. So it's really cool.
very cool. Yeah, I ran into Chakra
Mhm.
UI. Can't remember. Somebody recommended it for something, and I remember checking it
Yeah,
out.
Chakra
Uh,
UI. Yeah,
yeah,
that's cool.
awesome. Well, if people want to check out Sales or Sales Conf, where do they find that? And then also, yeah,
Yeah, just
any content you have on Inertia.
yeah, so salesconf.com/Africa would take you to the page. I am gonna be opening up the CFP and sales for ticket like next week. And my work on Inertia, I have free articles, posts, and also videos. So I teach full stack web dev on salescast.com. So we also have like free screencast. And I'm working on a course which I'm going to release like the first chapter this this week or next week, which is the build 50 products in 50 days, because I like
Mm,
how easy the stack is to build stuff. So I want to show how to be like real SaaS app looking like most, like just build 50 of them, like from top to bottom, like everything you need for building like an app, the billing, teams, um, everything for different apps. We're going to build. So for each chapter of the course, we're building a new stuff with the borrowing stack. So it's going to be fun. So yeah.
very cool. And that's 50 apps in 50 days.
Yes. So I could link it. Sales guys. So I call it codename project 50 because why not?
That's awesome. I might borrow that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love the idea of doing 50 apps in 50 days.
Mhm.
Um, so I
Yeah.
have a couple of
So
questions on
okay.
that
Mhm,
just to dive in.
mhm.
One of them is, so are you using a lot of the same stuff over and over, right? So a lot of your authentication will look the same, and a lot of the other kind, you called it a boring stack. So I'm assuming you're using a
Yeah.
lot of stable, boring, hey, look, we
Yeah.
use the same
Yeah.
Tailwind components or however you put it together. And
Exactly. So I feel it's just so it's what things um like the Laravel templates I've enjoyed over the
Mhm.
years, where so I joke that if you do like a new JavaScript full stack stuff, you get like a counter where you get to click. But in some other framework, you get like authentication and everything. So those part of your apps, they are most generally stable. So if you have
Right.
something that could just take you 60% the way, then you focus on your business logic, I think you're gonna move faster.
Hmm.
So I just want to show this with real world because it's show don't tell. So you see for yourself how productive it is to like use something that is boring. So you just focus on the core of your app and ship to your users really quickly. And if it's boring, it's less headache when you have to debug stuff because
Right.
it's predictable. Yeah.
Yep. That's cool. I kind of wanted to see if I can do that for Rails. And
Ooh, that'll be
I've been
fun.
wanting to for a while put together effectively that same kind of thing where it's like I need authentication, so I run the authentication generator. I need
Mhm.
payments, I run the payments generator, right? Like
Exactly.
that, there are a dozen things that I just do the same way every time. And so yeah, then it's okay, now I want something podcast, right? Because I'm very much into the
Mm-hmm.
podcast community, right? Something podcast
Yeah.
utility that does this thing, right? And so then I can throw that together in a day. Yeah, no big deal.
Exactly.
I love it. I love it. Well, people
Please
should
do it.
definitely
I will
check
be
that
looking
out.
forward to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if you don't have anything else to throw out there for us, we'll have you come back and
Mhm.
talk about sales because I'd love to dive into that. But in the
Yes,
meantime,
please.
we do picks at the end of the show. I'm not sure how
Mhm.
familiar you are with that, so I'll go ahead and go first. Um,
Okay.
So picks are just shout outs about whatever. And I usually do a board game pick. I'm trying to
Mm.
remember the name. I always the board game is actually a card game that I'm going to pick. Is called The Gang,
Gang.
and
Check it out.
yeah. So if you've played, I've mentioned The Game before, which is you
Oh.
have numbered cards and you're trying to put them out in order with certain rules, right? As far as what you can place on the piles. The Gang
Yeah.
is like
Oh, I'm
cooperative
looking at it.
Texas Hold'em.
Mm.
So if you've played Texas Hold'em before, it's a form of poker for those that you know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to assume anybody knows anything, but if you've played poker before
Okay.
and you've played Texas
Yeah.
Hold'em, right? You get two cards. This is typically the game that you see people playing um, in the movies, right? If they're playing poker, that's usually
Mm.
Texas Hold'em. And they flip three cards for the river, right? And then they flip another card and another card, right? And
Mm. Yeah.
so what you do is you get your two cards and you look at them, and then there are tokens out. There's one token per player, and so there's one with 1 star, one with 2 stars. We were playing 3 players, so one with 3 stars, right? If you have 4 players, then there's going to be another one 4 stars, right? So the person, if you
Mm-hmm.
think you have got the best hand at that moment, then you grab the 3 star, right? And so typically, if
Mm.
you have a face card, right, you're gonna grab that. Or if you have a pair, if you start with a pair, then you may grab that 3, right? And
Mm.
then maybe somebody else is going, I have an ace, and so they may take the 3 from you, right? And you can just take it back, and you can continue to steal the tokens from other players until everybody has a token in front of them and they're pretty comfortable with what they have. And then what you do is you flip
Nice.
the river, right? So you flip those 3 cards and you do it again, right? So maybe the pair I started with that I was fighting over the 3 star token, I had a pair of threes, right? And when we flip the
Mm.
cards, now somebody is more aggressively trying to take the 3 because there's an ace and a king out there. And so I'm going to assume that they have a pair of aces or a pair of kings, and so
Mm-hmm.
their hand now beats my hand, if that makes sense. And so I may go
Mm.
for the 2 or the 1, right? And then you flip another card and it's a 3. Now I have a 3 of a kind, and so I'm going to be taking that 3 and trying to say, no, I have the best hand because my 3 of a kind beats your pair of aces, right? But I don't know what
Nice.
everybody else has. And so what you're trying to do is you're trying to win 3 hands as a team, right? With everybody having the right token at the end of the round
Yeah.
before you lose 3 hands, right? And so if you're
Mm.
wrong, if somebody has a better hand than you and you have a higher token than them, right? Then you lost. Anyway, so anyway, it was really fun. We got to the point where we were playing around in like 10 minutes.
Wow.
Right. We would get through a game in 20 minutes, half hour. And it was
Mm.
really, really fun. Like sometimes it was hard, right? So I'd have like an 8 and a 6, and somebody else that I was playing with, they had a 10 and a 6, and a 6 came out in the river, right? So we both have a pair of sixes, which means that the other card that we have is the one that determines whether or not we win, right? And so then it's down to, okay, yeah, we picked it wrong because we had two cards that were close to each other. But anyway, it was really, really
Mm.
fun. Really enjoyed it. Um, Board Game Geek weights it at 1.64. I would also
Mm.
imagine that if we had more than 3 players playing, it would be harder because now you're trying to figure out where you fit in among more hands. My buddy who bought the game, he's learning it so he can teach it at SaltCon here in Utah. It's a big board game convention. He's
Nice.
helping them teach the popular games or the hot games. Um, he he said that the guy that he learned it from, he and his wife play it 2 player, and they each play with 3
Mhm.
hands. And so that I would imagine might get a little more complicated as well, because now you have to keep track of which of my hands is winning at the time, along with trying to keep
Mhm.
track of what the 3 hands of the other person is, right? So with 6 hands, I would guess that's gonna get tricky. But anyway, it was fun. I really enjoyed it. So I'm gonna pick that.
Yeah, I'm glad
Um,
you did.
Yeah. So then other picks. I am launching JavaScript Geniuses right now. If you sign
Yeah,
up before
saw that.
Valentine's Day, which is this, we have 108 people watching. If you go to javascriptgeniuses.com and you sign up, if you sign up before Valentine's Day, then you get the meetups and the videos and everything else for JavaScript developers. Incidentally, if you do Ruby, I'm doing Ruby Geniuses too, and it's the same format. We're going to have a meetup every
Mm,
week. You'll get to come to the book club. Um,
mm,
you'll get videos from me every week, right? At least one, probably two, right? Where it's, hey, here's how you do a thing in JavaScript, kind of like Rails casts used to do, or it sounds like Kelvin does it with sales casts, right? Mine's more
yeah.
generally JavaScript. It'll probably have, if there are any frameworks in, it's probably going to be mostly React. But yeah,
Mm,
so I'm putting that together. But if you sign up before Valentine's Day, I'm also doing a 1 hour coaching session, which I usually charge $250 for. And
mm,
I'm also throwing in 6 months of text and voice coaching, which is essentially if you've used, you can use like WhatsApp. That's probably what I'm going to use, WhatsApp. But you can send me a voice message on WhatsApp and I'll respond to you on the voice message. So it's, hey, I'm stuck trying to figure out this performance problem on my app, and this is what I've tried. And then I may get back to you and say, have you tried this, this, and this? You may get an
mm,
answer from me off the top of my head, or you may get an answer from me because I bugged Dan Shapir and said, what would you do here? Right? Because I know
yeah,
people who can help me answer the questions if I can't. Right? Similar
yeah,
with
sure.
Ruby. So anyway, if you want to
Mm,
sign up, javascriptgeniuses.com. I have monthly, yearly, and lifetime, and you can go sign up over there. And like I said, you get the coaching for 6 months and you get the one coaching session. So if you're trying to find a job or you feel like you're stuck in your career, this is a really good opportunity for something like that. So anyway, those are my picks. I'm going to throw out a movie pick. So I finally got around to watching Dune Part 2. It was
ooh,
good. I
okay.
liked it. The book's still better. Sorry, but I enjoyed it. So anyway, Kelvin, what are your picks?
Yeah, this was like you had some nice pick, and I like the name JavaScript Geniuses. So my pick, just a game I want to learn. I've been putting it off for a while to learn it. So the only board game I currently play is chess, but
Mm-hmm.
I want to learn Go because I was told it's the next harder strategy game, and it's kind of different from the mindset of playing chess, where you get to like capture pieces and stuff. With Go, it's more like having control of territories.
Yeah.
So it will be fun. Like, yeah. So the first time I saw it, it was just all white and black pebbles, and it was just confusing. But I'm going to get a board and going to try learn it because I like those sort of games. So those is like the only games I will be playing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Then
Yeah, chess
for
and Go are definitely
Mhm.
fun.
Yeah.
And the mechanics are reasonably simple, but the
Mhm.
strategy is just that's why I love them, right?
Yes, it
It's like,
is.
okay. And there's always
Yeah.
somebody better than me that, after they soundly trounce me, then it's okay. What did I do wrong, right? How can I learn to be
Yeah.
better? I
Yeah.
just love it.
Yeah. It's really good. It's just good for the strategy. Like that's why I love it, and it's fun. And
Yeah.
to the for my pick, it's let's see. So mostly just salescast.com. Like take the free videos because I want more people to do full stack JavaScript. It's like the whole vision that I want because I
Hmm.
think it's the one advantage we're not really leveraging a lot. Ryan Dow gave us like a great gift of JavaScript everywhere, but still, people still want to go to Rails or Laravel to do backend. Why? What are we getting wrong, or what is it? Education. So I'm solving the education part, also doing open source parts to make it like easy to
Hmm.
build full stack apps with JavaScript because I think it's an unfair advantage that we should leverage some more. Mm, so yeah, movie pick. I saw Marco Polo. So on Netflix, I've always skipped it because I thought I might not like it, but it was really good. I like the series Marco Polo. So even though I think there's one more season that has to come, like maybe like season
Hmm.
3 or so. but really good. But my favorite series of all time has always been Suits. But Marco Polo was good.
Suits.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Suits.
my wife
Like
and I
I
started
can't
watching
stop
that, and
watching it.
we had a little trouble
You
getting
don't
into it. I'm just wondering if the first season's a little bit harder to get into. I don't
really?
know.
Hmm, it was good for me, like all through, like
Yeah.
every season. Yeah, I guess it's preference.
Yeah, then the series that we're watching on Netflix right now is The Night Agent. And
The Night
yeah,
Agent.
it's,
Oh
it's
yeah,
kind of a
so
spy
that
thriller.
one did
It's
not work
it's
for
fun.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one didn't work for me. I don't know why. Like I felt it was too. I like espionage and spy movies, but I couldn't get on that one. It just felt too. The script was too predictable, and I wanted a little bit of mystery, like with Blacklist
Yeah.
and stuff. So I guess I was
Yeah,
comparing to
Blacklist was
maybe I
great.
wanted too much. Yeah.
No, I can definitely see where you're so the first season I felt like had enough it had
Yeah. Right.
enough novelty to it, because um
Mm,
yeah, it was somewhat formulaic, but I thought it had some novelty to it. The second season, I mean, we've only watched 2 or 3 episodes, and yeah, I'm worried that because they've leaned a lot into a lot of things that generally
mm.
happen in most of the other spy thrillers. So we'll see. We'll see
Yeah.
how it goes. But yeah, the first season we
Yeah.
enjoyed for just how yeah, there were some parts that were different. Blacklist was definitely there was a twist or an
Yeah.
angle on every episode.
Every
And
time,
that made
like
it fun to
good
watch. It's
good
like,
writing.
yeah, well, and
Yeah.
some of it, it some of it followed some of the same, predictable
Mhm.
patterns. But then there was always that thing at the end where it was like, and you just made Reddington a
Cliffhanger.
crap ton more money or gave more power or right. Right. So
Yeah.
you did this good thing
Yeah.
and took this criminal off the street, but it turned out that there was this other angle on it. And so you're watching it
Yeah.
every
It's
time going,
always keep
okay,
you
what's the
guessing.
angle here?
Yeah. Yeah. So speaking of that, one movie that was really good too. I think you might like it if you like political thrillers
Mhm.
too. The Diplomat. Have you seen it?
Yeah, we've watched The Diplomat. The
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
2
It was really. I
seasons.
think it's good.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
that
think
that
it
one's
was
been
good.
really good.
Mm-hmm.
How do I put this one? So a lot of the things that happen in it, right? You talked about things being somewhat formulaic. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
that stuff, right? As far as like the spy and cloak and dagger stuff, right? Yeah, you
Mm-hmm.
you kind of follow along with that and go, yeah,
Of
this
course.
is this is kind of a spy thriller. But the difference is
Mm.
is that she's the ambassador and her
Yeah.
husband's this wild card and
Yeah.
you keep going, he's totally on her side, and then in the next breath he's totally
Yeah.
destructive to this, right? And so it's
Yeah.
the characters that make the difference there, because the
Yeah.
circumstances just are, you know
Yeah.
it
Of
really
course.
keeps you
Of course.
guessing. And so yeah.
Yeah, it was good. It was fun, and like it always have this um comic undertone to it. So
Hmm.
it's like it's serious stuff, but you could laugh at like some of the things she's doing.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
well,
it's really good.
and some of that too is, so typically when you see the spy thrillers and stuff like this, the motivations are usually more or less the same. And with her,
Mhm.
she's not, right. It's like
Yeah,
they come out
I don't want
pretty
to be
early
it.
in the Diplomat with, I
Yeah.
don't want to give too much away, but they come out pretty early in the Diplomat that she's essentially up to become the vice president, right? They're looking to push the vice
Mm.
president out, and they're thinking about pulling her in as the VP. And she
Hey,
doesn't
I don't want to
want
spoil
it,
it
and she
for
doesn't
you.
know if she wants it. And so
Yeah.
she
Have you
does
seen the?
things
Yeah. Hmm.
because she just wants to be herself and do things the way she's always done them. And so,
Yeah.
and then there's some character development, things like that,
Hmm.
anyway, that's the fun part of that. But what are you
Hey,
saying?
have you seen all the episodes? I don't want to
Yeah.
spoil it for you in any way.
Yeah,
You've
I've
seen?
seen them all, but I don't want
Okay.
to spoil it for anybody
Okay.
else.
All right. Okay. You all go see it. It's nice. It's a nice watch.
Yeah,
Mm.
it gets deeper and deeper
Yeah,
into
it
this
really does.
mess. Anyway,
Especially for the husband. It's crazy. Yeah.
he is. He's But the thing is he's doing what he thinks is best for her. There are
Yeah.
times where
It
you're
was.
thinking he's also doing what's best for him. But
Yes.
yeah, but it makes it really interesting because the things that motivate him and the reasons he makes his decisions are completely different from her. And so
Yeah.
you're like, he does stuff and you're like, that was really sneaky and oh, that hurt. Because you're rooting for her. But anyway.
Yeah. It's good
So
stuff.
yeah. Anyway.
Mhm.
All right. Well, if people want to connect with you, where's the best place to do that?
Yeah, X, I think is where I'm
X.
at most of the time. Yeah,
What's
X
your
at
handle?
Dominus_Kelvin. At
Okay.
Dominus_Kelvin. Yeah, I think that's where we do it. Yeah. So you could mention me on anything and I will answer when I'm online,
Yeah.
actually. Yeah.
All right. Good deal. We'll go ahead and wrap it up here. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you so much, Charles. I love that. Yeah.
All right, folks. We're going to wrap it up here. Until next time, Max out.
Yeah.
All right. I need you to hang on for just a second.